a map. So for example, like environment variables, right now when Helm does its merge, one of the limitations is it doesn't know how to merge a list of, say, even though there's like literally the name value pair for an environment variable, it doesn't know the name is the key because there's nothing in Kubernetes schema which describes that as the key. So this has now been added to Kubernetes objects, but only a way that the API server can really understand, because it's I forget the exact details of why it couldn't. Maybe it could be exposed to Helm for the client side to does information, but the key thing is if you want to. So right now today, if in Helm, if you want to update a list, you have to. It can't do anything. So basically, it just overwrites the list. So one advantage is, so like if you have environment variables and you have a controller that injects environment variables, when Helm does its three-way merge, it doesn't know how to combine these things in a list. Like intuitively, you'd be like, well, if you have a, say, environment variable name foo, and you have two values with foo, then the incoming value should just overwrite that. But unless you know that the name is the key for the list, am I making sense in this explanation? Or
Mhm.
um, then then you can't actually
Can you
merge
drop
these. You
that
can't merge them.
URL into the chat real quick? I just wanted to, I want to look at it
Yeah.
later.
So why do I keep on? Sorry, I confuse myself because so it's stuck on the YAML view. But all the links from here.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, so one advantage of server-side apply is that you can merge
No, I
lists.
literally wanted to see that URL that you're on right now, though.
Okay, that's yeah, rather than just linking them all, they're all. It's
Just
check again.
the manager's one that you were showing.
It's this link here.
Okay, thanks.
Um,
So you said before that, like, I thought you said that server-side apply was a Helm thing that got done, added to Kubernetes, or what did I miss there?
I wouldn't quite describe it like that. So Helm came up with a three-way strategic node patch. Kubernetes authors then implemented what they called server-side apply, which is maybe it's the same process, but it's got some extra syntactic sugar on top. Maybe might be the at least a cheap way to describe. It's not quite exactly the same.
Did Helm get rid of the three-way merge after that, or did they just kind of keep it around? But
no, we still don't use server-side apply because we never incorporated taking it on.
And that's what the HIP is about, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, so one of the problems with server-side apply for Helm is that there's conflicts. And right now today, Helm does this, but that's maybe not what we want totally. So Helm needs to decide how it would want to deal with conflicts for server-side apply, and there's also the ability to send in different field managers for a given chart. So if you send in different field managers, but this would break things which didn't like Argo. Where is my? So I've described these things down. Yeah, conflicts and enforcing. So we need to think about how Helm's going to interact with server-side apply effectively when it comes to introducing it. So you can transfer ownership between fields. I think we should just do this one initially and not try and uh, allow Helm to expose ownership of field, well, transferring ownership of fields to chart authors. But the full featured item is you could send in multiple fragments of YAML, or you can specify your field manager and conflict resolution options as an annotation and a YAML fragment. But that also means that anybody who's consuming a Helm chart YAML, say like Argo, would have to understand these annotations and map them to Kubernetes field. Kubernetes API parameters.
Are the annotations the / plus things?
No,
The
so
Golang marker?
No, these are Kubernetes object annotations.
Okay.
These Golang
Where do the
markers.
Golang markers show up?
I'm trying to find there's these things here. So these go in the Open API schema.
Okay.
And they tell Kubernetes that if you have a list,
Well, that
yeah, so I can find an example probably easily on the internet.
yeah.
Example. Same thing, sorry.
Sure.
So we'll have an example.
Well, I can hunt around for it later.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Drop that link in if you don't mind.
Yeah, so there's
Cheers.
there's ins and outs of how we'd like integrate with the server-side apply API, but I did try and put them into the hip. And to be honest, it's actually been about 6 months since I looked at this hip, so I forget some of the details myself. But yeah, I do think it's, I mean, and then we can.
So is it at a point where it's ready for review? Has anyone looked at it? I'm not sure.
Not to much. I haven't got any concrete feedback. But this is what it would look like for
a PR. Is this a PR or it is like
this is a hack to make it
right, yeah.
which I ripped off from Kube Control. And but if I remember, it does allow. This is what you would somewhat need to do to get server side to apply to work with Helm.
Right, you create a patch.
Yeah.
The field manager is right there. Okay. I think I saw this. I saw that when I looked at the PR. Your hip.
Yeah, so this is kind of what it would look like if you actually implemented it. It's not very complicated. It's just, yeah, how you specify some of these things, like we want strict, etc. And welcome Evans. I was just in the middle of
That's fine. So I'm wondering, should we consider I think would it be would there be cases where the old logic, the charts that rely on that, like
So I
depend
did.
charts that depend on that behavior existing, like the current merge, three-way merge existing, meaning that
So
all
there could be, and when I find my link, I have some logic in here where
right. Yeah. Okay, so it's an opt-in. You basically give no a way for people to opt out.
yes, I think we should have a way to opt out. Whether we want to use a flag or a annotation in a chart, I'm not sure.
Both. Like, and an environment variable. I think we should always think in terms of those three.
Yes,
Right?
fair.
As a, not always, but we should actually consider those for everything, I think. I still have a hip that I need to write for that. So anyway.
Yeah, so the goal was to, like, if you install a chart with server-side apply enabled or upgrade it with server-side apply enabled, then yeah, so the default here would be auto. But the goal would be like once if you would default to the your default to false. And you would also or things like environment variables and chart annotations to be discussed, but you would reuse the previous option from the charts from the releases deployment, with the intention that if a chart worked with server-side applied previously or required server-side apply previously, then you would continue to manage it with server-side apply.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. And if you explicitly pass server-side apply to true and it was false, it would override and basically make that.
Yeah, if the user chooses server-side apply, like you might get a new version of chart which is an upgrade, which requires server-side apply.
Okay. Does Kubernetes that would be an attribute stored in the chart itself, in the chart release?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking if there's something else we wanted to discuss. I want to like jump between these to get like interest in different hips, and then we can review them more concretely offline if.
No, I think this the questions I had you've answered so far, like when I joined in.
Yeah.
But the last question was: is it at a point where it's now can be reviewed?
I need to just adjust some of the language, like this.
Yeah, Helm 3 there.
But I think the large amount, like all the concepts exist, like they are, like yeah, it's just saying like in a future version of.
Right. Okay.
I guess just basically like deleting this 3. So yeah, it is pretty much in a good place to be reviewed, at least like from a high level.
Okay.
And trying to like understand the concepts. There's some things to like tidy up manually, but
is there a way for hips that you put them in a state where they're, I guess you could just say draft, you can make them draft pull requests. Is that how you normally do it?
I think
do you know that feature like in GitHub, you can say,
yeah, so if it's not ready to review, that means it's draft. But once you want people's eyes on it, then
wait, GitHub draft or status draft here?
So GitHub draft is if you don't want people to review the
right.
Review the pull request. Status draft is still a work in progress, but
Okay, so kind of both. Got it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to take a quick look at for 13 minutes?
I have
I'm happy to.
something,
Oh,
a
yeah,
quick
go.
question,
Yep.
and then I have to go get ready for another meeting. I was wondering if there's a place online where I could, like, I know some of the stuff that you can do in Go templating, but I don't know all of it. Is there a definitive place where I could learn all of the stuff that might show up from Go templating in Helm charts?
There's probably 3 places off the top of my head.
Okay,
There is Go template. I don't know if this is an authoritative site, or there's the Go template. Go
There's the official documentation there.
yeah, so there's official documentation. There is Sprig.
Sprig, yeah, Sprig is.
yeah, and I've seen Sprig, sure. I'm wondering if, is there something kind of Helm, like maybe anything was the wrong way to ask it. Is there's stuff that's like all the stuff that I probably would see eventually in Helm charts. I mean, I assume these two are way more than actually get used, but I don't know. Or does everything
So
get used?
let me explain what the details are. So there's Go template, obviously the language thing where we just looked at. Not
Yeah.
one. There is Sprig, which Helm builds into its binary.
Yeah, it's like a standard library of useful functions.
Yeah, of additional functions. And then there is also
a few others that we've added. Template is one.
Yeah.
Required and include. Do we document them? I'm not sure.
Yeah, these are documented on the help site. But there's this in function map. And this adds a bunch of additional templates which are specific to Helm.
Oh yeah, lookup as well. I'd forgotten about it.
So these are like the 3 places which you would ever see any. Yeah,
I can find the other two. Can you drop the link to that one?
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
We'll drop them or send some in the chats. Yeah, so those are the 3 places where you'll find Go template things for Helm.
Cool. And one other thing we talked about in the past was, I just wondered your thoughts on this, is like, you want the chart should be, immutable is not quite the word, but they should be, an idempotent isn't the right word. It's they should always produce the same value for the same inputs, right? They should be functionally pure, I think might be the right term.
Functionally pure would be ideal. They're definitely not today.
Yeah, and I think I just wanted to say that like a post renderer throws that completely out the window, because that's just a binary that it has access. If it has access to the internet, it can use the internet. I know it has access to disk. So
yeah,
if there is a disk,
you just need a function like now. Which depends on external state, which is the system clock.
Oh, and I don't think they can be functionally pure, because like lookup is lookup is also another one. Those ones,
right,
goes to the cluster, gets something. So
can you generate random numbers outside of a
yep,
outside of it?
random.
I think there is something like that. Cryptographic. Yeah, there you go. Sure.
There you go.
Checksums. No, well, checksums can be.
Right. UUID was almost certainly not functionally pure.
Find the random functions. Yeah. Oh, they're right at the top. Rand alpha. Yeah.
There you go. So, okay.
So yeah, all these things mean that charts are not, and because there's conditional logic, you can in theory write something crazy like rand alpha. If the digit is 1, do this. If the digit is 2, do that. And your chart will just do different things every single time you do something.
So anyway, I was just thinking, like, I'm not going to lose sleep over like the things I come up with not being functionally pure, I'm just not going to promote anything that's not functionally pure, probably. Or, stay away from that.
Yeah, it's like, how do I? It's like repeatable builds. Like it's very, very hard to get a bit. You know what I mean by repeatable builds. Like there's that idea that
Yep,
you take your
yep,
source
yep.
code and you build just like a identical bit for bit binary at the end. Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's very, very hard to get to that level of repeatability. But you can get close. Like if I take my source code and I build a binary 5 times, yes, they're going to have different bits, but they're going to
Yeah.
do the same thing. We actually discussed this a little bit. Build kits. So build kit is actually built on the idea that it's kind of like make with timestamps, but rather than timestamps, it's content hashes. So every time you fill something into this build engine, it looks at the inputs and it takes the hash of the inputs. And if the hashes match, then it knows that the
Yeah.
previous stages have been complete. So we could do something like this along these lines with Helm, where if you do a lookup and you get the same result back from the API server, then your chart is going to have this form, which could be part of a build cache or something. I don't know. It gets a little crazy conceptually after that, but
I
yeah,
guess what like one of the things I was thinking when you just showed Sprig was like, okay, I need, Helmwise would want to have access to YAML script versions of all those functions, certainly, I would think. And so, but would you include those in your chart? That would be not the best. It would be better if it like got a specific version of that from the web and cache that, if you know it. So then it's just a pointer somewhere in the chart. Yeah.
So these are kind of just like helpers. Like, to be honest,
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I just want,
yeah.
all of those things to be available from YAML script directly so that people don't have to learn.
Yeah, that's fair.
If they want it, right? I could just say import YAML script Sprig or something like that.
So there's one other important concern that we have with Helm is if I go back to here, for example, this is an illustration like we don't enable DNS lookups by default. We disable DNS lookups. The reason for this is that get host by name, you could use a chart to do DNS exfiltration. So we have a security boundary, is what I'm going for, where we don't actually want to interact with remote sources, especially not in the templating phase. The problem with this is like get host by name is you could do DNS exfiltration to send out someone's secrets like AWS credentials to a malicious DNS server. So we have to be careful of that security boundary.
I can think of a way to do this without that, because I believe that, so if you had Helmwise as your post renderer, Helmwise would, YAML script program knows where its file is that it's being run from on disk. And so it would know that directory, and it could just actually pull the stuff from there. So it wouldn't even have to hit the web at all to pull in stuff that it already had, right? That was already there, guaranteed.
Yeah, I guess there's two parts to this problem. Once you can exfiltrate stuff, you can at least exfiltrate what's been given to you in the chart. Once you can read additional things from the file system or the network, you can pull things in from the network or the file system or environment variables, and you can push them externally. So we really want to avoid the second case of being able to read arbitrary things.
Right. So this would be completely non-arbitrary, though. Yeah. It would be reading from the.
Would that be a case of the runtime protecting from that? Like if we go with WASM, would it be a case of having certain that WASM protects from?
This is a strong reason to go with WASM, because it provides the sandbox that we need from like an isolation.
And the way you imagine WASM, could WASM do post renderers then?
Yep. That would be the goal
That
would
would be
be
something.
probably to kill off the post renderer flag and just say, well, maybe this is not fair. Yeah, so certainly what I would like is the chart to describe a renderer, which I think would supplement the need for a post renderer.
Yeah.
As in right now you're using post renderer because it's a way to inject YAML script
Yes.
into Helm's pipeline, but it's the only way. it's not the preferred way, I don't think. Ideally, you would just take YAML script as the rendering engine, and yeah, it's just on the lines of that security boundary. You want to the way I see it is, I think you just want to write a chart in YAML script.
Yeah, that's a goal, right?
That's one goal, but another goal for using YAML script with Helmwise, and it's stated clearly, is that you can use Go templates and just replace like one little part that you need to do something interesting that YAML script can do that Go templating can't do. So you can mix the two at any level. I don't know if that's
okay. Yeah, no, yes, I certainly agree with this.
But I can imagine.
Yeah, I would say we would want to extend the goal. You do want to write a chart in YAML script, but you want to be able to probably mix and match your rendering engines. Like you don't,
Or
we don't want.
you add a new subchart that happens to be YAML script, but you don't want to. You're not ready to convert your entire chart to it yet.
I like
that.
I like that, because then what that gives you is, I have my chart, I write it in YAML script, but then I have all these dependencies that I have in my chart.
Yeah, of course.
Have been authored in Go templating. They'll still work.
Yep. Or you just have a very complex chart and you're not going to rewrite it all on YAML script in one go.
Yeah.
So, to this point, like I think the goal is to write your charts in YAML script, but I don't want to imply that you have to write your entire chart in YAML script.
Right. I have to go to this other call.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I should
Great
jump off
talking
too.
to you guys. Have a great weekend.
All right.
Thank you. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your holiday there.
Yeah, have a good one. Actually, one more thing. Do you want to have a look at? Have you used the SDK much?
Yeah. Well, not much, but I have used it. Yes.
So I want to try and improve the SDK.
Right.
Where's my issue?
I saw it. I wanted to comment on it. Yeah, but it's in the Helm community issues. I think it's a first.
Yeah, so actually if I share, I'm gonna share again. If you look at what the SDK looks like, just gonna close this. Run install looks like this.
I have this code. I've actually copied this and used myself.
Yeah, and then you have a driver which looks like this. And I feel like this could be, I mean, to be fair, the driver does all these things now, but run install, like all this. So this is actually like one line. But the settings is part of this CLI, if I remember. Yeah, CLI environment settings. So like this should not be a type which you need to pass into your actions, which depends on the CLI package, for example. That's like, I guess, more nitpicking about. But basically, you can imagine a world where using the SDK was more like using like 3 lines and not not all of these lines. Like why
and all that. Yeah. How I look at it, because the SDK, if it's so right now you get your chart. Well, you download your chart, you extract your chart. You template your chart. Let's put it that way.
I probably should have stuck this as a comment. I wrote this documentation, but you don't actually have to do pull and then install. You can just install from a remote. I just
Mm.
I just wrote it like this for an example of having a pull.
Because how I see it is, we need to be able to expose. We need to look at what kind of goals people would like to achieve, right?
Right.
Like we're crafting the API, because then again, we want to reduce the surface area of the API, because then the larger the surface area, the more things that you need to. Now, how granular do we want to go, and how much do you want to expose as interfaces that people can implement? You know, like if you have your registry client that you want to sort of, you know, put there. Anyway, so
yep.
Looking at operations like downloading a chart, what does that involve? And expose an API that does that, right? Extracting a chart, well, that's probably quite simple, but you know, very high level operations, expose those APIs, and anything else comes in more like, for lack of a better word, like helpers. So if, for example, you want to do some operations on the chart.yaml or on dependencies, those would be structs or classes by themselves that you can operate on. And then those would be, we can use those as building blocks. Now, we probably have most of those. I think we do, like the chart.yaml, that's exposed as a chart. You have the chart util and all that. So it's probably just bringing those together. And then the sample, the sort of very high level APIs, what you'd call like the porcelain, right? You'd have the porcelain and well, I'm trying to remember what was the other term for the lower level. Anyway, you have the building blocks, and then you have the high level. Like, I just want to run and install. You have a setup and then install. Point some charts there, and that's it. So most people would just use those few commands, like you were saying, those few lines, like you were saying, without having all this setup. But again, if you want to build, you want to build your Flux or your Argo CD, you still are capable of doing that without needing to sort of reinvent the wheel.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree with. Yeah, like most people, they're going to want to install a chart. So they should be something like do an install.
Like that, yeah.
And you got to pass it some information. But yeah, like the reason why this is a helper function is because it requires all of this to run the install on the client side. So yeah, we do need to worry about how like to your point, like ideally this wouldn't need to be a helper function. It would just be like one object, and yes, there should be the low level primitives, building blocks that build up to the actions, but that's what we call them today, the high level operations. And then how to do things like communicate with the registry. Like these should come with like defaults, like kind of like there should be like batteries included, so you should be able to write like 5 lines and do stuff. And if you need to go more more primitive, the interfaces to do more advanced things that are exposed. I better jump. I got a call which I'm meant to be listening to.
That's
so
fine.
The key thing to bring this up is if we start thinking about this, then we can start to make a plan.
I'm still lost. I'm still not clear on how we'll do that. I don't know. Is it a case of just saying what we'd like to, start with, what do we want to achieve, and the sort of
basically
high level? But let's talk about that once, maybe next call or next year, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, next year.
All right. See ya.
See ya.